Father, thank you. Thank you again for your presence with us. Thank you that you draw us together. And we know that when we come together, that you reveal more and more of who you are and of what you're doing. And so we just ask, Lord, that at this time, our eyes and our hearts would be opened, and that we would see more clearly what you're doing in these days at this time. Lord, I just pray for Gil, for Leah, for his family, and for this community here where we live. And Lord, that you will protect and cover each family, every family member. Lord, all those who are in the IDF, or they're away, they're for whatever they're doing, to guard the borders and to guard this nation. We just ask, Lord, again for the government, for all those in authority, Lord, that you will give them wisdom, and that, Lord, their hearts will be turned toward you and to what your purposes are. Yeah, just bless Gil now, Lord, as we chat together. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So, what should we start with?
Well, golly, one of the things I'm realizing that in many ways things have gone quiet in the sense of what's actually happening in Israel now. We hear an awful lot of what's happening outside of Israel that's coming against Israel. All the things that are being said. One of the questions that somebody had written and asked for you, maybe this would be a good place to start. What are your feelings about this Schumer guy from the States? Maybe you can, for those that haven't heard about his comments, maybe you could just fill us in about that.
Okay, so maybe we'll just review a little bit of what is going on.
I mean, at the moment,
we can if there are any questions, you can we'll just read them out.
Yeah, there aren't any more.
And it'll be good if we could even relate everything to the upcoming days. Right now before Purim, the holiday of Purim, which is in a week from today. So it'll be good if we could connect everything with that as well. The war is still taking place. I mean, the war hasn't stopped. It's we still have IDF soldiers fighting in Gaza, moving towards the southern border of Gaza with Egypt. There is a city there called Rafah or Rafiah. And Rafiah is basically split. There is half of it on the Egyptian side and half of it on the Palestinian side, and of course, I mean, we know that there is a lot of infrastructure in terms of terror tunnels, in terms of still Hamas people, creating a base for themselves in Rafah, and the soldiers are still moving ahead. There isn't any ceasefire agreement at the moment. So as far as for both sides, the war is still taking place. That's on the southern part of Israel, and on the northern part of Israel, actually even more so. I mean, there is more artillery than we used to see. It's becoming heavier and heavier, and the rockets are becoming bigger and more meaningful. And Israel is of course defending itself and attacking back and all of that, but it's really feeling like it's more and more heated, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
My brother lives close to the northern border, and they have a bar mitzvah to celebrate at the beginning of the month of June, and they're actually, I mean, they don't quite know what to do. I mean, they don't know whether they should plan to do it there. It's in 2.5 months. Maybe they should plan doing it somewhere elsewhere. The military hasn't asked them to evacuate. I mean, where they are, so they can stay. But we don't know we don't know where this is going to escalate. I mean, but it really feels that things are escalating. More on top of that, I mean, we have the southern border, the northern border, and on top of that, we also have Judea and Samaria being, things escalating also there, especially now in light of the event of Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. So we have every day, IDF soldiers arresting terrorists on their way to perform terror attacks. In terms of it could be with weapons. It could be with bombs, suicide bombers. It could be with knives. It could be with anything really. I mean, we see people in Judea and Samaria right now, needing to stand in traffic, and that became a question whether I'm going to stand in traffic, because we've seen cases in which terrorists just came to the traffic and began shooting at people while sitting in their cars. It's a very complicated. It's a challenging time. It's very complicated, definitely, security wise. It is. We're not going to say that it's felt all throughout the country. I mean, in vast majority of the country, people might not necessarily feel that, but we know that things are happening in the south, things are happening in the north, and things are happening in Judea and Samaria, which is the heartland of Israel. So that's in terms of where the war is. Right now, there is a talk about they're trying to get to an agreement about the hostages, and like maybe to have a ceasefire and release some hostages, but Hamas is not being consistent about it. I mean, one day they say that they want to do it, and another day they say they don't want to do it, and on a third day they say they don't even know where the hostages are. And I've even heard a request coming from them saying, give us the ceasefire just so that we can gather ourselves, get ourselves together and have a clearer picture where the hostages are. We don't even know if they're. What they've said is we don't know whether or not they're alive. Maybe they died out of starvation. Maybe they died from Israeli bombings. So either way, as far as they are concerned, it's Israel responsible for their death. I mean, it's either starvation because Israel is holding back humanitarian aid, or maybe Israeli bombing. So in any case, they don't take responsibility. They're actually the good guys here, protecting them, keeping the hostages safe, so to speak. It's a very difficult thing to make a deal with people of such like. I mean, people that you cannot trust a word that comes out of their mouth, and every day there is a new narrative that you need to check and see whether or not this is actually the truth. So definitely challenging. Definitely. I mean, we are now more than 5 months into this war, and to be honest, I mean, it doesn't. It's people ask us, so how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? Or people say, for example, in Israel, there's a lot going on inside of Israel, inside of Israeli society, in terms of the hostages. So you have the group of people who say, bring them home now. Okay, and that's like, when they say now, the understatement is like whatever it takes, in all costs. I've heard people, I've heard like parents say, give them whatever they want, release all prisoners, give them a state, give them whatever they want, give them the moon. We want our son back. Yeah. And that's on one side of the spectrum, and I'm not being judgmental towards it. I mean, that's what it is. You have people who say bring them home. So just going out to the streets and then just making it, bringing it to the awareness of the people, the awareness of the leaders, that we're all expecting to see them back. And there is also a group of families of the hostages who don't say anything. And usually those people they come from a background of faith, people who have faith, and they simply say that they say like, we don't need to go out there and shout bring them home. I mean everybody knows. I mean we don't think that there is a single person on the planet who doesn't know what is going on, and the fact that there are hostages in Gaza. We don't need to go out and shout that. I mean, on the contrary, they say, when we do it, we only weaken Israel. We put our family members in Gaza. We put them in greater danger because Hamas sees that this inner pressure that people are making on the government here, and when they see that, they harden, right? They give more strict demands. They want more and more and more, and that's not going to be for the benefit of anybody.
Yeah.
So they simply choose not to say anything. There is one mother of one of the hostages whom she's very interesting. Maybe you can listen to her online. She has English background actually. Her name is Ditsa O, and she's the mother of a hostage called Avinatan. Avinatan, he is one of. There was a couple at the beginning of the war. Their picture became quite famous. I mean, he's a big guy, and she was, and his girlfriend was put on a motorcycle.
Oh, right.
They
Yes,
took her.
yes, yes.
Her name is Noah, and his name is Avinatan. Ditsa.
Ditsa.
Yeah, we put it with a Z, maybe with a Z or a TS. Ditsa is she's quite impressive and amazing. I mean, she has a lot of faith, and she and she says the best thing that I can do is to send him the strength that he needs. I'm his mother. We're linked, and she said like every morning I would start with like 3 hours of meditating into his soul, she says.
Wow.
And she would sit and send any kind of strength that she can, send him love, send him energy, send him blessings, praying for him, encouraging others to pray for him and for all the other hostages. That's her take, and many others, and she's not the only one. And that's the third group. Personally, I relate with them the most. I don't think they're creating inner pressure right now, on top of everything, creating inner pressure and demonstrations. It's not the time. It's really not, to my humble opinion, that's not the time. And I think that's also the vast majority of people in Israel. I mean,
so when I'm driving, like I've been driving back and forth to Tel Aviv the last couple of days, and you see like pictures up on the overhead bridges and also yellow ribbons.
Yeah, well, the yellow ribbons. The yellow ribbon is it became like it's kind of like the symbol of wanting them back. Everybody wants them back. That's not even a question.
Right.
It's not even a question. But the country is dealing. But there is more to the story. There's more to the story, and the yes, there is more to the story, and. And our leaders need to take everything into consideration. That's basically where we are right now. So that's a little brief, briefing on what is going on right now in Israel.
And what about I mean, I think it's been a real anybody I've spoken to lately after those comments from Shuma in the US. Can you just give a little bit?
I'm not sure whether he's a senator or he's a congressman, but he made he's a senator, and he I mean, who is usually, I mean, pro-Israel, and he's of course Jewish, and yes, we'll try to do that. Okay, thank you for the comment, and we will try to make it as loud as we can. So this is about the comment that came from the senator, the American senator last week, who actually said, to those of you who haven't heard, but he said that the people of Israel must come together and take down the government, and basically replacing Prime Minister Netanyahu. Whether this is true or it isn't true, that's not your place to say. I mean, it's not for you to say. I mean, we cannot let any outside governments in Israeli democracy. I mean, Israel has to keep. If we want Israel to stay and to be left, democratic, then it's only the people here who will decide, when elections are going to take place, and nobody from outside should interfere with that. So he made that comment. It was, I think, and to the opinion of every Israeli that I've spoken with and read opinions about that, it was totally misplaced. Not a comment which should have which was supposed to be which should have been said, but it was said, and it's unfortunate. And to be honest, there is there's a there. I mean, in Israel, I mean, right now there is a. We're trying to understand the kind of maybe shift, if so to speak, but the shift in world's opinion. Closer to the 7th of to October the 7th. I mean, public's opinion was more pro-Israel, and people were. I mean, people were witnessing the horrors, and we felt there was more of an open ear to listen to the distress which we were in. And now, 5 months later, it feels differently. It feels differently, but the situation here hasn't changed. It's the same situation. It's the same war. It's the same enemy that we're dealing with. Nothing has changed, but the world's opinion has changed, which I'm still trying to analyze it. It has only been 5 months, and I get it. I mean, when you look at the media, and the media keeps sending pictures of bombings in Gaza, and bombing and bombing and bombing, and people who don't know what the bombing is about, people who don't know they don't know the story. It looks like, yeah, of course, the one who bombs. I mean, yeah, of course, they're the bad guys. That's not the case. I mean, and anybody who reads the Bible must know that that's not the case. God sent us, and we can't deny that. We read the Bible. God had sent us to fight battles in His name, and it's there. There are wars that are justified. When you fight against evil, you don't do it by writing a post against it on Facebook. I mean, when you fight against evil, it can get really nasty. It can get really unpleasant, and it's something that it's something that we all need to be very patient about, and not to expect that it'll all overnight. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a long-term process, and this is something that we need to uproot. I mean, it's not easy. Our soldiers are fighting in a very challenging ground. Very challenging ground with the civil population, and they're trying all the time. They're trying to do as much as they can. These are the orders to bring the damage of civil population to the minimum, to the real minimum, not any more than that. And we have friends who are fighting. I have friends who are in Gaza. Friends who are coming back from the battlefield and sharing the commands that they're getting, and they're all saying, it puts them at risk. Yes. It puts them at risk because they can't open fire against suspicious images, because it might be someone uninvolved. But if the person is uninvolved, why is he in a military area, in a fighting area, after being warned to stay out of it? So it's often their lives are in danger, and often our men are killed because of these commands wanting to spare the lives of uninvolved people. So it's complicated. It's challenging. It's very much. It's also very challenging in the in consciousness. I mean, in mindsets. I mean, for example, now just to speak, from our own little corner in the world. I mean, in my family, I speak to the kids, and the kids are petrified. I mean, my kids are really scared. I mean, we had to go to a bar mitzvah celebration 2 days ago, and it was in Samaria. I mean, not too far away from where we live, and we live in Judea and Samaria. But it was like into like a more crowded area, a bit more intense, and they were really scared to go.
Really?
Yeah, really scared to go. I mean, and I said, but what has changed? I mean, we've been there before, but they don't want to be in that sort of interaction, in that sort of proximity with people who clearly they see as the enemy. And I tell them, no, I don't want you to see all of the people on the other side as the enemies. I mean, there are people there who are people, and it's about the leadership. It's about terror cells working inside of them, but it's very hard to uproot that kind of association. And if it's in the head of my kids, then clearly it's anywhere else. So yeah.
So just
it's also challenging in that regard.
If you take a little area like here where we live, it's a fairly small community. How many are there in this?
3,000 people.
Yeah. So out of those, how many would you say are away fighting?
Well, we have 750 families living here, and out of which we've had about 150, 150 men
Mm-hmm.
and a few women as well. I mean, a few
Right.
women as well who are taking positions. That's going to the military, but other than that, you have paramedics, civil paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
You have social workers, you have psychologists,
Civil.
you have educators who are working round the clock to make up for to provide services that you don't need on a daily basis. I mean, you can imagine
Mm-hmm.
in terms of let's say social workers or people who work with trauma and things like that. So they've been working round the clock since October the 7th. So it's not only about being taken. I mean, being recruited. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the people going to serve, they're happy to go. They're not happy to be in a position of needing to fight, but they're happy to go in order to bring this to an end, to uproot this evil that we've been neighboring with for the last 20, 30 years. So the people are very motivated. The leaders, I mean, we really have to pray for the leaders, for the leaders to really be strong and of good courage to finish this, not to blink, not to compromise on this one. I mean, we really have to uproot this evil. We can't leave it. Okay, when I say evil, I talk about Hamas as a terror organization. People their constant motivation is bloodshed. Constant motivation, constant thing. I mean, the thing that they push it's bloodshed. That's what they teach the children at school. And we've been in those schools. I mean, we have evidence coming from soldiers who have been working in those schools, pictures of textbooks, teaching, showing images of attacks, okay, like all illustrated, but attacks, or a geography lesson where children in Gaza, I mean, they learn about the map of Israel all being Palestine. Like there is not even they don't even mention the name Israel being a country neighboring with them.
Right.
I mean, not at all. And this is after 2005, when the Israeli government has made a gesture and evacuated 8,000 people from the Gaza Strip as a gesture to Hamas and said, this is us, reaching out, wanting to have a peace agreement with you guys.
They evacuated Israelis.
They evacuated Israeli, of course. The 8,000 Israelis from their homes, Israelis who lived in the Gaza Strip, they evacuated everything, their houses, their businesses, even the graveyards. They evacuated everything as a gesture of reaching out for peace with Hamas. But in Hamas, they said, of course, we'll take this part of land, and we'll build universities and hospitals and parks and opportunities for better jobs and healthcare, etc. But all we got was terror tunnels into the kibbutzim who were just across the border. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating.
Yeah.
And Israel has been paying money to Hamas monthly over, I mean, all these years. I mean, electricity coming from Israel for free, no custom service. I mean, they get shipments to our ports, our harbors in Ashdod, and it goes there for free. Israel is paying giving monthly budgets to the government of Hamas, whatever for, so that they will be able to fund their machine of poisoning, mind engineering, the next generations, that all they can think about is how to kill Jews. It's terrible. It really is. It really is. So it's very complicated, and it's not going to happen overnight, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
It's a season, and we have to be strong enough to get past it.
Yeah. Wow. That's.
Any other questions?
No, not really. And I mean, I think you've covered a lot of things. So.
It's I think one of the things to really just to connect it with the days of Purim, because that on Saturday night we will be celebrating the month of the holiday of Purim. Purim is the month that is basically the holiday associated with everything that happened. We can read about in the book of Esther. And but it's not just that. I mean, Purim is also the holiday in which we talk about Amalek. And I think that the topic of Amalek, the Amalekites, I think that's the most non-politically correct thing you can find in scriptures. And scriptures are definitely not politically correct. I mean, God is not politically correct. And even more so, this topic about dealing with Amalek. In the book of Exodus, we find Amalek for the first time. We find the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, and the Amalekites are the first ones to come and fight against them. And the way their strategy was to attack the rear ranks, to attack from the weak, exactly, to attack the elderly and the children, and to attack women, to attack the weak spots. They didn't come head in head, like head to head, like military against military. That wasn't their tactics. I mean, they wanted to attack the rear ranks, and it was very much a spiritual battle, because I mean, we all remember Moses, lifting up his hands, right, his arms, and the more he lifted his hands, then Israel prevailed. Yes. And when his hands were lower down, then the Amalekites prevailed. And that's not something that demonstrates, physical battle. I mean, this was definitely a spiritual battle.
That really says something about how we need to be lifting up the leadership.
Oh, definitely.
Right, in our time.
Definitely, and also the direction which we need to be looking into, to. I mean, it's not about looking outside and looking for support from other countries in the world. It's about turning to our Heavenly Father. It's a spiritual battle. I mean, the whole thing with Amalek is very spiritual. The Amalekites came to fight against the children of Israel in order to demonstrate that there's no news about you coming out of Egypt. That's what they wanted to say.
Right.
I mean, chill. They said, relax. Okay, we're not going to change the world right now just because you came out of Egypt. That's what they wanted to fight against. They wanted to show that all this enthusiasm, this fire that came along with the children of Israel coming out of Egypt, that wasn't to be relevant for the entire world, and they came to fight against God Himself. It was that much, it was to that extent that afterwards, when Moses spoke to the children of Israel about that battle against the Amalekites, he said that God will have a war against the Amalekites in all the generations to come. And he said the way that he presented it was that the hand of the Lord is on His throne. The hand of, which is a sign of making an oath, basically. God made an oath, God made a commitment by fighting against the Amalekites in every generation. In the book of Deuteronomy, we find God's tactics to do that. He's sending us to do that. So he said, remember what the Amalekites had done to you when you came out of Egypt and you were tired and weary, and they attacked you on your rear ranks, etc., etc. It begins with remember what they've done, and it ends with you shall not forget. Okay, 3 verses in the book of Deuteronomy, and these verses are also read in the context of the days of Purim. How so? Because Haman, in the book of Esther, Haman was an Agagite. And when we go to the book of Samuel, we see that Agag was the king of the Amalekites.
Right.
So in actual fact, when Saul was sent to annihilate, to utterly destroy the Amalekites, as I said, not politically correct, but to utterly destroy the Amalekites, Saul was sent to do that. When he was sent to do that and he didn't do that, he spared Agag for one night before Samuel came and basically slit his throat, basically killed him, cutting his throat. It's all there in the book of Samuel. There's no way to make it sound nicer. That's what he did. And Samuel did it as an elderly man at that point. And because Samuel realized that when you deal with evil, you can't spare it. If you show mercy to evil, you will become cruel to those who really deserve your mercy. It changes your views. Your morals are changing 180 degrees. Everything changes. And indeed, we saw Saul sparing Agag, and later Saul was responsible for the death of all the priests of the city of Nob because he suspected that they helped David when he ran away from him. So he didn't spare those priests in Nob, his own brothers, priests, in serving God. He didn't spare them, but he spared Agag, the Amalekite king. It's a lesson. It's a lesson, and we read it at the synagogue. We read 1 Samuel chapter 16 there. We read from Deuteronomy. We read from Exodus. We depict the whole picture before we come to read from the book of Esther about Haman, so that we remember that Haman, Agag was spared for one night, and later, many years later, Haman was an Agagite, and Haman he was far less sophisticated than Nazi Germany, far less. In Nazi Germany, they've had like final solution. It was a 6-year plan. It was a process. It was there was a lot of logistics and trains and all of that. I know it sounds horrible. Forgive me, but that's what it was. And Haman wanted everything to be in one day. And what was his plan to do that? You can all read in the book of Esther. He wrote a decree, signed and sealed with the ring of the king, saying that all the people in the empire, and there were 127 states in the Persian Empire back then, it says so explicitly, all the people in the empire became the king's mercenaries on that particular day, which is the day of Purim. Okay, and he said on that day, anybody knowing any Jewish person in the Persian Empire must, a decree from the king, must kill that person. Everybody became mercenaries. Everybody. Can you imagine? One day in which millions are slaughtered. One day. It says so explicitly. In one day he wanted to do that. That was Haman. And that he came from this bloodline of Agag. He was an Agagite. Think about it. He belonged to his bloodline, blood, genealogy. That's all very important in scriptures. So he came from that bloodline. That means that this was also the plan of Agag back in the book of Samuel, the same Agag that Saul spared.
And he was the king of the Amalekites.
And he was the king of the Amalekites. Yes. So Purim is very much the day when we get to see when we don't have to feel apologetic about fighting against evil. Now, I am not saying that anybody is an Amalekite, because we didn't run any DNA tests and we can't do that. But we can definitely talk about the spirit of the Amalekites. The spirit of the Amalekites was complete annihilation of anything that has the banner on which the name of the Lord is. Okay, it's an anti-God movement. It's an anti-God spirit. Okay, fighting against anything which is godly oriented, let alone being the people who carries His name on its banner. So we can definitely talk about that spirit. And against that spirit of Amalekite, if we see it existing in the world, we do not have to feel apologetic while fighting against it. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's difficult in the West, in Western culture, to talk about fighting, war, like seeing these pictures of bombings. And I know it's not difficult. It doesn't look right. But we have to be wiser than that. We have to be smarter than that, to look at the overall picture. What is God doing right now? What does God really want? He had put us in a corner. That clearly He wants us to act from that corner. And Israeli soldiers have been doing amazing work to uproot evil and spare the lives of uninvolved people. I'm sure that if all goes well and Hamas government really falls down, and the people in Gaza, if they are able to tell their side of the story and to bring testimonies about Israeli soldiers who have helped them in the process, who have brought aid and food, supplies, saved the trucks with humanitarian aid from being looted by Hamas, doing things for them, then I'm really waiting for that to happen, because it's one thing to hear it from me right now or bringing that side of the story, but it'll be completely different to hear it from them firsthand. Mm-hmm. And so there is much to expect still to happen. and we need to be patient. Fighting against evil, it's not easy. Right. Have to be patient, and we have to be very to make sure that our eyes are fixed on Him. And war is war. It's not an easy thing. I mean, when we read Torah, we see that the soldiers coming back from war, they have to consecrate themselves. They have to cleanse themselves. They have to purify themselves. It's not easy. I mean, it's not a simple thing. It's one thing. I mean, yes, it is our obligation to defend our existence, and after that, we will have to go through. I mean, we will have to go through a serious process of healing, in terms of making sure that we are not damaged inside, and that's something that it's an ongoing thing, to like drop after drop, to just remind ourselves who we are and what is it that we're fighting, and we're not doing it like animals. Leave the pictures that you see on the news. We are not doing it like animals. We do it with a lot of consideration and with a lot of humanism, can you say, or like with a lot of emotion. I mean, we are not denying the fact that we need to do it, but we're not doing it on an animalistic basis. It's we are really, really, really trying.
Are you hearing? Because I always ask you each time to tell us some God stories. I mean, are you hearing anything? Have you had anything sort of really recently that really stands out?
Yeah, well, there are miracles happening. Miracles happening every day. Stories about miracles coming back, coming from the battlefield all the time. There is a news channel which is people of faith, and it's a religious one, and they have a weekly story that they dedicate, like a weekly column, and like the people they basically upload stories coming from the battlefield, and there was one just last week of a guy who, well, he was with his unit, of course, and there were people, I mean, out of the unit, wanting to pray, and doing the services. I mean, we need 10 people basically to do it right, so that we can go through all the texts and really do it in the full way. We need 10 guys for that, and they only had 9. So one of the guys, I mean, he's the one telling the story, but he said, so he was sitting, like, he was just sitting, on his corner, and he said, like, I don't usually pray. He doesn't see himself as observant in any way. And the 9 guys, they said to him, will you come to be the 10th? I mean, will you, join us? And he said, well, I don't do prayers. That's not my thing. And they said, you don't have to pray. Just be part of us. You don't have to do anything. We just need you to listen. I mean, just you being present with us as a group, we just need you. Like, we need you with us. You don't have to do anything. Okay, just stand here with us. We just need you to be part of it. You don't have to say anything or nothing. So the guy said, okay, fine. So he got up, and he walked. I mean, he walked to where they were standing, and he said that like 2 seconds after he got up from his chair, an RPG missile hit the chair where he sat. Like, hit the chair, not like next to the chair, but the chair. 2 seconds after he got up to participate, to join in with them in service, to be part of the service. And he didn't even do it in order to pray, just to help them do it.
Right.
And so that was the one that I've just recently read. But and there are stories like that all the time. It's really, really amazing.
It's really amazing.
Yes. And we say good Purim. Good Purim and a happy Purim, and may we all be of good courage. And
how will you pray? How are you praying right now for this? Because I'm sure that there are sort of feelings about, what might be planned on Purim. So how would you encourage us?
Well,
obviously to pray, but
well, if you look at social media in Arabic, then you clearly see that there is a plan about Purim. Okay, you see that. I mean, we get pictures from Arab-speaking social media, and and they talk about they talk about the bloodbath of Ramadan, clashing with Purim. It's I mean, the month of Ramadan is actually exactly the same month as Purim this year. I mean, they started on the same day. They really go like parallel. And Purim is the time, and that's really the miracle that we're celebrating on Purim. Purim is the time when all things get turned around in a way that you didn't expect it. So all the Jews in the kingdom, in the empire, the Persian Empire, were supposed to be killed. They were about to be slaughtered in one day, all of them. And that particular day became the day in which the Jews defeated their enemies. They were given the permission from the king to fight against their enemies, to fight back, and they were saved. Okay, so the same very day turned from being a day of complete annihilation to a day of victory. And I think, and that's our prayer in during this month, and of course in the upcoming days before Purim, so that any idea or plot that comes against that comes in will be turned around, and victory, and we will see that victory. We will see God's victory, and it's that's really a prayer for these days.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, and a happy Purim, and thank you very much for standing alongside, and thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you, Gil.
It
was so inspiring.
Thank you.
And it's so lovely to hear what is happening from inside Israel, because
what happened?
I don't know.
I
don't know what happened. I was talking too much.
That was fine.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you very much.
It's just so lovely to be, and it brings back so many happy memories of when we were in Israel in 2017. It was wonderful. Something I shall never forget.
Lovely. Thank you, Margie. Thank you very much. Good to see you
guys.
Lovely.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bless you, Gil and Ruth, from Alan Sue.
Thank you.
Israel Chai.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Shalom.